The sound of shattering glass echoed through the Golden Palm restaurant as another server fled to the kitchen, tears streaming down her face. Marcus Blackwood, worth more than most small countries, stood over the broken wine bottle with a cruel smile playing on his lips. This was the third server he'd reduced to tears this month, and it was only Tuesday. "Clean this mess up," he barked at no one in particular, not bothering to look at the trembling busboy who rushed forward with a mop. "And tell your manager that if he can't train his staff properly, I'll find somewhere else to waste my money." Before we dive into this extraordinary story, tell us, what city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love hearing from our global family. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep this storytelling journey alive. Your support truly keeps us going. Now sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for a story that will stay with you long after it ends. The Golden Palm was Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, where a single meal could cost more than most people's monthly salary. It was also Marcus Blackwood's favorite hunting ground. Every Tuesday at exactly 7 p.m., he would arrive in his black Bentley, sweep through the restaurant like a storm cloud, and leave destruction in his wake. The staff had learned to fear Tuesday nights. They would draw straws to see who had the misfortune of serving table 7, where Marcus always Saturday. The unlucky server would spend the evening dodging insults, impossible demands, and public humiliation. Most lasted less than an hour before running to the bathroom in tears or simply walking out mid-shift. Marcus thrived on this power. At 35, he had built Blackwood Industries from his father's modest construction company into a global empire worth billions. He owned hotels, restaurants, shopping centers, and half the real estate in downtown Chicago. But more than money, Marcus loved control. He loved watching people squirm, loved seeing the fear in their eyes when he raised his voice or snapped his fingers. "Sir, would you like me to get another bottle of the 1982 Bordeaux?" asked Jenny, the current server, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked up from his phone, his steel-gray eyes cold as winter. "Did I ask you to speak? I asked you to bring me a bottle that wasn't defective. That wine tasted like vinegar." Jenny's hands shook slightly. The wine had been perfect. Marcus had barely taken a sip before throwing the bottle to the floor, claiming it was undrinkable. But she knew better than to argue. "Of course, sir. Right away." As Jenny hurried toward the wine cellar, Marcus turned his attention to his phone, scrolling through emails about his latest acquisition. He was in the middle of buying out a small family restaurant chain, and the owners were being stubborn about selling. They would learn, just like everyone else, that Marcus Blackwood always got what he wanted. The restaurant manager, Robert Chen, watched from across the room with a heavy heart. He had run the Golden Palm for 15 years, and in all that time, no customer had caused more trouble than Marcus Blackwood. But Marcus spent over $50,000 a month at the restaurant, and the owner made it clear that losing his business was not an option. Robert had watched good servers quit because of Marcus. He had seen confident young waiters reduced to nervous wrecks after just one encounter. He had even tried speaking to Marcus directly, suggesting perhaps a private dining room where he could have more privacy. Marcus had laughed in his face. "I don't want privacy, Chen. I want service. Real service. The kind where people understand their place." That place, according to Marcus, was far beneath him. The kitchen buzzed with nervous energy as servers shared horror stories about their encounters with the billionaire. Sarah, who had lasted 3 minutes serving Marcus before he sent her away for breathing too loudly, was training the new girl who would start tomorrow. "Whatever you do," Sarah whispered, "pray you don't get assigned to table 7 on Tuesday night. That's where the devil sits." But tomorrow was Wednesday, and Maya Rodriguez was more focused on making sure her black server's uniform fit properly. At 24, Maya had worked in restaurants since she was 16, putting herself through community college and supporting her younger brother after their parents died in a car accident. She had waited tables in diners, sports bars, and upscale bistros. She thought she had seen every type of difficult customer. She was wrong. Maya's first week at the Golden Palm went smoothly. The other servers were friendly, the kitchen staff was professional, and the tips were better than anywhere she had worked before. She handled demanding customers with grace, remembered complicated orders perfectly, and even managed to charm a few regulars into leaving generous tips. But she noticed something odd. Every Tuesday, the entire staff became tense and nervous. Servers would volunteer for double shifts on other days just to avoid working Tuesday nights. The few who did work would cluster together in the break room before service, looking like soldiers preparing for battle. "What happens on Tuesdays?" Maya asked Sarah during her second week. Sarah's face went pale. "You haven't met him yet, have you? Marcus Blackwood. He comes in every Tuesday at 7. Sits at table 7. And his..." She struggled to find the right words. "He's the worst person you'll ever encounter." Maya had heard whispers about the billionaire, but she assumed the stories were exaggerated. How bad could one customer really be? She would find out soon enough. Maya's third Tuesday at the Golden Palm started like any other day. She arrived early, helped with prep work, and reviewed the wine list one more time. She had been assigned to Section 2, which included tables 5 through 8. Table 7 was in her section. At 6:45 p.m., Robert Chen gathered the Tuesday night crew for his usual pep talk. "Remember," he said, his voice strained, "Mr. Blackwood is our most valued customer. He expects perfection. Whatever he asks for, whatever he says, just smile and do your best to accommodate him. If you need to step away, come find me immediately." Maya raised her hand. What if he's unreasonable? The room fell silent. Robert's eyes widened slightly. "Maya, Mr. Blackwood is never unreasonable. He has high standards, and we are here to meet them. Is that understood?" Maya nodded, but something in Robert's tone bothered her. She had worked in customer service long enough to know the difference between high standards and abuse. She hoped the stories were just rumors. At exactly 7 p.m., the black Bentley pulled up outside. Maya watched through the window as Marcus Blackwood stepped out, adjusted his expensive suit jacket, and walked toward the entrance like he owned the building. Which, Maya realized, he probably did. Marcus was tall and imposing, with perfectly styled dark hair and sharp features that would have been handsome if not for the constant sneer on his face. His suit probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months, and his watch caught the light as he moved, clearly worth a small fortune. He didn't acknowledge the hostess who greeted him or the busboy who pulled out his chair at table 7. He simply sat down, pulled out his phone, and waited. Maya took a deep breath and approached the table with a warm smile. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood. Welcome to the Golden Palm. My name is Maya, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink?" Marcus didn't look up from his phone. "You're new?" "Yes, sir. This is my 3rd week here." That explains the enthusiasm. He finally raised his eyes to look at her, his gaze cold and calculating. "It won't last. Bring me a bottle of the 1982 Bordeaux. The good bottle, not whatever swill you usually serve." Maya's smile never wavered. "Of course, sir. Would you like me to recommend any appetizers while you look over the menu?" "Did I ask for recommendations? I asked for wine. Are you deaf, or just stupid?" The insult hit like a slap, but Maya had dealt with rude customers before. She kept her smile in place and nodded politely. "I'll get that wine right away, sir." As she walked toward the wine cellar, Maya could feel the eyes of the other staff on her. They were waiting for her to crack, to run to the bathroom in tears like so many others before her. But Maya had been through worse than one rude customer. She had worked 3 jobs while caring for her sick mother, had dealt with drunk college students who threw food, and had once served a table of businessmen who spent the entire meal making inappropriate comments. Marcus Blackwood was just another bully in an expensive suit. She returned with the wine, presenting it properly and waiting for approval to open it. Marcus barely glanced at the label before waving dismissively. "Just open it, and try not to contaminate it with whatever cheap perfume you're wearing." Maya wasn't wearing any perfume, but she said nothing. She opened the wine with practiced efficiency, poured a small amount for Marcus to taste, and waited. He took a sip, made an exaggerated face of disgust, and shook his head. "This is terrible. Bring me a different bottle." Maya looked at the wine. It was a $500 bottle of perfectly preserved vintage Bordeaux. There was nothing wrong with it. Is there something specific about the wine you don't like, sir? Perhaps I could suggest a different varietal. Marcus's eyes flashed with anger. Are you questioning my palate? Do you have any idea who I am? I know you're Mr. Blackwood, and I want to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. If this wine isn't to your taste, I'm happy to bring you something else. For a moment, Marcus seemed taken aback by her calm response. Most servers would be apologizing profusely by now, or running away. But Maya stood her ground, maintaining her professional demeanor. Fine, he said finally. Bring me the Chateau Margaux. And make sure this table is cleaned properly. It's sticky. Maya checked the table. It was spotless, polished to a perfect shine. But she wiped it down again anyway. Anything else I can get for you while I fetch the new wine? Just do your job and stop asking stupid questions. Maya nodded and walked away, her smile finally faltering slightly. She had dealt with difficult customers, but Marcus was different. He wasn't just having a bad day or stressed about work. He was deliberately cruel, taking pleasure in making others uncomfortable. In the wine cellar, she found the Chateau Margaux, a $800 bottle that was absolutely perfect. As she carried it back to the table, she noticed that several other diners were watching the interaction with interest. Word had apparently spread that the new server was dealing with Marcus Blackwood. She presented the new wine, opened it with the same professional care, and poured a tasting portion. Marcus took a sip, held it in his mouth for a moment, then spit it back into the glass. Disgusting. Are you trying to poison me? This wine is clearly spoiled. Maya knew the wine was perfect. She had tasted it herself while in the cellar. It was smooth, complex, and exactly what it should be. But she maintained her composure. I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get the sommelier to help us find something more to your liking. I don't want the sommelier. I want someone who knows what they're doing. Are you even old enough to serve alcohol? The insult was clearly designed to embarrass her in front of the other diners, who were now openly watching the exchange. Maya felt her cheeks warm slightly, but she kept her voice steady. I'm 24, sir, and I've been serving wine for several years. I'd be happy to bring you our wine menu so you can choose something yourself. Don't tell me what you'll be happy to do. You work for me while I'm sitting here, and right now, you're failing at that job spectacularly. Maya took a deep breath. She thought about her rent, due in 2 weeks. She thought about her brother's college tuition. She thought about all the servers who had fled from this table in tears. What would you like me to do to improve your experience, Mr. Blackwood? Marcus leaned back in his chair, a cruel smile spreading across his face. He was enjoying this. For starters, you could show some respect. Do you see this watch? It costs more than you make in a year. This suit costs more than your car, assuming you can afford a car. I own half of downtown Chicago, and I could buy this restaurant and fire you before dessert. So when I tell you that wine is garbage, you don't question it. You apologize and fix it. The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were staring, some looking uncomfortable, others seemingly entertained by the show. The staff watched from a distance, waiting to see if Maya would break like all the others. Maya looked at Marcus for a long moment, her mind racing. She had two choices: swallow her pride, apologize, and let him continue to abuse her for the rest of the evening, or stand up for herself and probably lose her job. She thought about all the servers who had run from this table. She thought about how Marcus clearly enjoyed humiliating people who couldn't fight back. She thought about the other customers watching, and what they were learning about what was acceptable behavior. Mr. Blackwood, she said calmly, I understand that you're used to a certain level of service, and I want to provide that. But speaking to me disrespectfully isn't going to improve your dining experience or mine. The wine I brought you is an excellent vintage in perfect condition. If you don't like it, I'm happy to help you find something you do enjoy. But I need you to speak to me professionally. The restaurant went dead silent. Even the kitchen seemed to stop clattering. Marcus's face turned red, then purple. Excuse me, he said, his voice dangerously low. "Did you just lecture me? I asked you to treat me with basic respect, sir. The same respect I'm showing you." Marcus slammed his hand on the table, causing the wine glasses to jump. Several diners gasped. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to? I could have you fired with a phone call. I could make sure you never work in this city again. You're nothing. A nobody serving tables because you're too stupid or lazy to do anything else with your life." Maya felt something snap inside her. All the years of working multiple jobs, of putting herself through school, of taking care of her family, of being talked down to by people who thought money made them better than everyone else. It all came rushing to the surface. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, her voice still calm but with steel underneath. "I may serve tables, but I'm not nothing. I work hard for every dollar I earn. I put myself through school, I take care of my family, and I treat people with dignity because that's what decent human beings do. Your money doesn't give you the right to abuse people who are trying to help you." Marcus stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "How dare you? Do you know what I could do to you?" "Probably a lot," Maya admitted. "But that doesn't make it right." The confrontation had drawn the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Other diners were pulling out phones to record. Robert Chen was rushing over from across the room, his face pale with panic. "Is everything all right here?" Robert asked, though it clearly wasn't. "This person just insulted me," Marcus snarled, pointing at Maya. "I want her fired. Immediately." Robert looked between Marcus and Maya, torn between his most valuable customer and an employee who had done nothing wrong except stand up for herself. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we could." "There's no misunderstanding. She was insolent and disrespectful. Fire her now, or I'll take my business elsewhere. And I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of establishment you're running here." Maya stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, I understand if you need to let me go. But I won't apologize for asking to be treated like a human being." The entire restaurant was watching now. Phones were definitely recording. Maya could see other staff members gathering at the edge of the dining room, their faces a mixture of admiration and horror. Marcus's phone was already in his hand. "I'm calling the owner right now. This little nobody is finished in this business." But before he could dial, something unexpected happened. An older woman at a nearby table stood up and began to clap. She was elegantly dressed, clearly wealthy herself, and her slow applause rang through the silent restaurant. "Bravo, dear," she said to Maya. "It's about time someone stood up to bullies like him." Another diner joined in the applause. Then another. Within moments, half the restaurant was clapping for Maya, while staring disapprovingly at Marcus. Marcus looked around in shock, clearly not used to public disapproval. His face was bright red now, and his hands were shaking with rage. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "I'm the customer. I'm paying for service." "You're paying for food and drinks," called out a man from across the room. "Not the right to abuse people." "I've been watching you treat servers terribly for months," added another woman. "It's disgraceful." Marcus looked around the restaurant, seeing disapproval on every face. For the first time in years, he was the one being judged. He was the one being stared at. He was the one people were talking about. "This is insane," he muttered, then louder. "You people have no idea who I am or what I've accomplished." "We know exactly who you are," said the elegant older woman who had started the applause. "You're a small, cruel man who thinks money gives you the right to hurt others. And we're tired of watching it." Maya watched in amazement as the entire restaurant turned against Marcus. These weren't college students or young servers he could intimidate. These were wealthy, influential people, his peers, and they were disgusted by his behavior. Marcus grabbed his coat from the back of his chair, threw a $100 bill on the table, and stormed toward the exit. "You haven't heard the last of this," he shouted over his shoulder. "I'll shut this place down." As the door slammed behind him, the restaurant erupted in cheers and applause. Maya stood in the middle of it all, hardly believing what had just happened. Robert Chen approached her, still looking shaken. "Maya, That was. He struggled for words. That was incredibly brave. But I have to warn you, Mr. Blackwood has a lot of influence. He could cause real problems for you, for all of us. Maya nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I know, Mr. Chen. And I'm sorry if I've caused trouble for the restaurant. But I couldn't just stand there and let him treat me like that. The elegant older woman who had started the applause walked over to their table. Excuse me, dear, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Margaret Wellington. She smiled warmly at Maya. And you are absolutely my hero tonight. Maya recognized the name immediately. Margaret Wellington owned half the art galleries in Chicago and sat on the boards of dozens of charities. She was probably richer than Marcus Blackwood, but she treated everyone with kindness and respect. Thank you, Mrs. Wellington. But I'm afraid I might have just lost my job. Margaret looked at Robert Chen with sharp eyes. Surely you're not considering firing this young woman for standing up to abuse? Robert shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Wellington, Mr. Blackwood spends a significant amount here. The owner will expect me to. The owner will expect you to run a respectable establishment, Margaret interrupted. Not a place where customers can abuse staff without consequences. If you fire this girl, I'll make sure every decent person in Chicago knows exactly what kind of business you're running. Other customers began approaching, expressing their support for Maya and their disgust with Marcus's behavior. Several mentioned that they had stopped coming to the Golden Palm because they were uncomfortable watching him mistreat the staff. I've been a customer here for 10 years, said one man. And I've been thinking about finding a new place because of that monster. If you keep him and lose her, you'll lose me too. Similar sentiments echoed around the room. Robert began to realize that maybe Marcus Blackwood's business wasn't worth the cost to the restaurant's reputation. The next morning, Maya arrived at work expecting to clean out her locker. Instead, she found Robert Chen waiting for her with a cup of coffee and a nervous smile. Maya, I've been thinking about last night, and I owe you an apology. What you did took incredible courage, and you were absolutely right. No one should have to tolerate that kind of treatment, not for any amount of money. Maya sat down cautiously. Does that mean I still have a job? Not only do you still have a job, but the owner wants to meet with you this afternoon. Several customers called this morning specifically to praise your professionalism and ask that you be their regular server. Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. What about Mr. Blackwood? Won't he cause problems? Robert's expression darkened slightly. Actually, we've decided that Mr. Blackwood is no longer welcome at the Golden Palm. His behavior last night was the final straw. We should have addressed it years ago. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. Really? You're banning him? We're a restaurant, not a place where people come to abuse our staff. Last night made it clear that his behavior was hurting our reputation and driving away good customers. Margaret Wellington alone probably brings in more business than he does, and she threatened to start a boycott if we didn't take action. That afternoon, Maya met with the restaurant's owner, David Harrison. He was a kind man in his 60s who had built the Golden Palm from a small neighborhood bistro into one of Chicago's premier dining destinations. Maya, I owe you a tremendous apology, he said. I knew about Marcus Blackwood's behavior, and I allowed it to continue because I was afraid of losing his business. That was wrong, and I'm ashamed that it took a server standing up to him to make me realize how badly I had failed my staff. Mr. Harrison, you don't need to apologize to me. I knew the risks when I decided to speak up. That's exactly why I do need to apologize. No employee should have to choose between their dignity and their paycheck. From now on, any customer who treats our staff disrespectfully will be asked to leave, regardless of how much money they spend. David leaned forward in his chair. I also want to offer you a promotion. How would you feel about becoming our head server trainer? We need someone who understands both excellent service and professional boundaries. Maya was stunned. In less than 24 hours, she had gone from expecting to be fired to being offered a promotion. Yes, I would love that opportunity. Thank you. Word of the incident at the Golden Palm spread quickly through Chicago's restaurant community. Maya became something of a legend among servers, the girl who had stood up to the infamous Marcus Blackwood and won. But the story didn't end there. Marcus Blackwood was not used to being told no, and he was certainly not used to public humiliation. He spent the days following the incident calling in favors, trying to find ways to hurt Maya and the restaurant that had embarrassed him. But he discovered something surprising. His reputation as a cruel customer had preceded him. Other restaurants didn't want him either. Business associates who had heard about the incident began to distance themselves. The video that someone had taken at the restaurant had gone viral on social media, with millions of people praising Maya's courage and condemning Marcus's behavior. Billionaire bully gets stood up to by brave waitress was trending on Twitter. This is how you handle entitled customers was shared hundreds of thousands of times on Facebook. The story was picked up by local news stations, then national ones. Marcus found himself in the unfamiliar position of being the villain in a story that everyone was talking about. His business began to suffer. Partners started questioning whether they wanted to be associated with someone who treated service workers so poorly. Employees at his own companies began to speak up about his management style. Investors expressed concerns about the negative publicity. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Blackwood was facing consequences for his actions. Meanwhile, Maya's life was changing dramatically. The promotion came with a significant raise and better benefits. She was able to reduce her hours at her second job and focus more on her studies. Her brother called her a hero, and her story inspired other service workers to stand up to abusive customers. But perhaps the most unexpected change came a month later, when Marcus Blackwood himself walked into the Golden Palm. Maya was in the middle of training a new server when she saw him enter. Her heart started pounding, but she stood her ground. Robert Chen immediately moved to intercept him. "Mr. Blackwood, as I explained on the phone, you're not welcome here." "I'm not here to eat," Marcus said quietly. "I'm here to speak to Maya. Just for 5 minutes." Maya exchanged glances with Robert, then nodded. "It's okay, Mr. Chen. I'll talk to him." They sat at a table in the empty bar area, away from the dinner crowd. Marcus looked different somehow, older, more tired, less sure of himself. "I suppose you're enjoying your 15 minutes of fame," he said, but without his usual venom. "I never wanted fame, Mr. Blackwood. I just wanted to be treated with respect." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. "Do you know what it's like to have everything?" he asked suddenly. "Money, power, influence, anything you could possibly want." Maya waited for him to continue. "I thought it meant I could treat people however I wanted. I thought being successful gave me the right to be cruel. I've been that way for so long, I forgot there was any other way to be." "There's always another way," Maya said softly. "The past month has been educational. I've lost 3 major business deals because partners didn't want to be associated with me. My own employees are filing complaints about my behavior. My mother called me yesterday. She saw the video online. Do you know what she said?" Maya shook her head. "She said she was ashamed of me, that she didn't raise me to be cruel to people who couldn't fight back. She's 83 years old, and she was crying because of how her son treats other people." Marcus looked up at Maya for the first time since he had sat down. "I came here to apologize. Not because my publicist told me to, not because it might help my business. Because you were right, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity. But Marcus looked genuinely remorseful. "I appreciate the apology, Mr. Blackwood. But you need to understand that this isn't really about me. It's about everyone you've hurt over the years. All the servers who quit because of you, all the employees who were afraid to speak up, all the people whose nights you ruined because you felt like being cruel. I know, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that right." Over the next hour, Marcus told Maya about his childhood, growing up with a father who believed that wealth and power meant never having to consider other people's feelings. He talked about how business school had reinforced those ideas, how success had made him feel invincible, how he had gradually lost the ability to see service workers as real people with feelings and dignity. "I'm not making excuses," he said. I'm just trying to understand how I became someone I don't recognize when I look in the mirror. Maya listened, occasionally asking questions, but mostly just letting him talk. She could see that this was the first time in years that Marcus had been honest about his behavior, possibly the first time he had been honest with himself. "What are you going to do now?" she asked finally. "I don't know. I've never apologized to anyone before last week. I'm not sure I know how to be a better person." It starts with recognizing that other people matter as much as you do. That being rich or powerful doesn't make you more important than anyone else. That everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Marcus nodded slowly. "Will you help me?" "Help you how?" "I want to make amends. Real amends, not just a publicity stunt. I want to reach out to the people I've hurt, apologize properly, try to make things right. But I don't even know where to start." Maya considered this. Part of her wanted to tell him to figure it out himself, that she didn't owe him anything. But another part of her recognized that this was a genuine opportunity for change, not just for Marcus but for all the people he might treat better in the future. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Over the following weeks, Maya and Marcus began an unlikely partnership. She helped him identify former employees who had left because of his behavior, servers from various restaurants who had been hurt by his cruelty, business associates who had been treated poorly. Marcus began reaching out to them, offering genuine apologies and, where appropriate, financial compensation. He established a fund to provide better training for restaurant managers on how to handle abusive customers. He changed his company's policies to encourage employees to report abusive behavior from anyone, including executives. Not everyone accepted his apologies. Some people told him exactly what they thought of him and hung up the phone. Others were skeptical of his motives. But many appreciated the gesture, and a few even forgave him. Maya watched his progress with cautious optimism. She could see that Marcus was genuinely trying to change, but she also knew that changing a lifetime of entitled behavior wouldn't happen overnight. The real test came 6 months later, when Marcus decided to return to the Golden Palm as a customer. He called ahead, spoke to David Harrison personally, and asked if he could make a reservation. He promised to behave appropriately and said he understood that any problems would result in him being permanently banned from all of Harrison's restaurants. Maya happened to be working that night. When she saw Marcus enter, her heart started racing again, but for different reasons this time. This would be the real test of whether his change was genuine or just an act. Marcus was seated at a different table. Table 7 had been retired from his use permanently. Maya approached the table with the same professional courtesy she showed every customer, but she was ready to call for backup if needed. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood. Welcome back to the Golden Palm." "Good evening, Maya. Thank you for the warm welcome." The difference was immediately apparent. Marcus made eye contact when he spoke to her. He said please and thank you. When she recommended the special, he listened politely and asked thoughtful questions about the preparation. When she brought the wine he had ordered, he tasted it and pronounced it excellent. When she made a small mistake with his appetizer order, he was gracious about the correction. Throughout the meal, he treated Maya and the other staff members with the same courtesy he would show to important business associates. Other diners noticed too. Several people who had been present during the infamous confrontation 6 months earlier were watching to see how Marcus would behave. By the end of the evening, it was clear that this was a different man than the one who had stormed out in humiliation. When Maya brought the check, Marcus left a generous but not ostentatious tip. As he prepared to leave, he thanked her sincerely for the excellent service. "Maya, I want you to know that you changed my life. Not just my behavior, but who I am as a person. Thank you for having the courage to stand up to me when no one else would. Thank you for listening, Mr. Blackwood, and for doing the work to change." As Maya watched Marcus leave that night, she reflected on the strange journey they had both taken. She had stood up to a bully and discovered her own strength. He had been humbled and found his humanity. Neither of their lives would ever be the same. The story of Maya and Marcus became legendary in Chicago's restaurant community. It was proof that standing up to abuse could create real change, that even the most entitled people could learn to treat others with respect, and that sometimes the most unlikely people could become allies in the fight for dignity and respect. Maya continued to thrive at the Golden Palm, eventually becoming the restaurant's general manager. She implemented policies that protected servers from abusive customers and created a culture where staff felt safe to speak up about problems. Marcus continued his journey of making amends, becoming an advocate for service worker rights and using his influence to promote respectful treatment of employees across all industries. He never forgot the lesson Maya had taught him that night, that every person, regardless of their job or social status, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And every Tuesday at 7 p.m., when table 7 remained empty, the staff at the Golden Palm remembered the night when everything changed. The night a brave young woman stood up to a billionaire bully and showed everyone that respect and human dignity are not for sale at any price. The story spread far beyond Chicago, inspiring service workers around the world to stand up for themselves and reminding customers everywhere that money never gives anyone the right to mistreat other human beings. It became a testament to the power of courage, the possibility of change, and the fundamental truth that every person deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter what their circumstances. Maya's story proved that sometimes the smallest act of defiance can create the biggest change, and that standing up for what's right is always worth the risk, even when you're just a server facing down a billionaire who thinks he owns the world. If you enjoyed this story of courage, transformation, and standing up for what's right, don't forget to subscribe to the Beyond Yesterday YouTube channel for more inspiring tales that remind us of our shared humanity and the power we all have to create positive change in the world.